So today we're diving into, well, I guess you could say a bit of a legend.
Oh, yeah.
The Bermuda Triangle.
That's right.
We've got some great research here on this infamous stretch of ocean. And I've got to say, I'm pretty curious to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
You know, separate the fact from the fiction.
Well, you know, it's definitely a fascinating area.
Mm-hmm.
So many stories out there make it sound like a watery graveyard, you know, for ships and planes and all that.
Right.
But the truth is a little more complicated.
Yeah, for sure. And right away in the research here, it says that big organizations like the Coast Guard and NOAA, you know, they haven't found anything that says that the Bermuda Triangle is any more dangerous than other busy shipping routes.
Exactly.
I mean, that kind of throws a wrench in the whole, you know,
it does.
Devil's Triangle idea, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, statistically speaking, the number of incidents that happen there is pretty much what you'd expect given how much traffic goes through there.
Yeah.
But people love a good mystery, right?
Yeah.
So it's easy to get caught up in the stories, even if there are perfectly reasonable explanations.
Right. So what about those explanations?
Yeah.
I mean, the article mentions human error. Is that really all it is? I mean, are we just talking about people messing up?
Well, in a lot of cases, yeah, especially back in the day before we had all the fancy navigation systems we have now. I mean, getting lost at sea was a real possibility.
Oh, for sure.
Like, take the case of this yacht called the Connemara V.
Okay.
Back in 1955, it was found just drifting totally intact, no crew, no nothing.
Wow.
And after they investigated, they figured the most likely cause was just a navigational error. They got blown off course, hit a storm, and that was it. No mystery, no supernatural forces necessary.
So just bad luck, basically.
Pretty much.
So are we saying then that weather's another big factor here?
Oh, absolutely.
The article talks about unpredictable storms, water spouts, all that.
Yeah. The Bermuda Triangle is notorious for its crazy weather.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine a rogue wave comes out of nowhere taller than a 10-story building.
Wow.
I mean, these things have been documented. It's terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of thing that can really make you feel helpless, you know? Like, there are these forces out there that we just can't control.
Totally. And I feel like that plays into this whole idea that there's something mysterious at work here, right?
Right.
But what about compasses going haywire?
Right.
I mean, that's a classic Bermuda Triangle trope, right?
Yeah, it's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the thing is, magnetic anomalies, they're real, but they're not unique to the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah.
And they're definitely not strong enough to make a ship or a plane just disappear.
Right.
Compasses can get a little wonky because of variations in the Earth's magnetic field, but any skilled navigator knows how to deal with that.
Okay, so are we basically debunking every popular theory here?
Well,
because, I mean, the source does bring up one that sounds kind of sci-fi.
Oh, yeah.
Underwater methane gas eruptions.
Right, the methane theory.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah.
But there's no real proof yet. The idea is that there are these big pockets of methane gas trapped under the seabed, and they can suddenly erupt, creating huge bubbles that make the water less dense.
Okay.
So ships could just sink really fast.
Hey, that's quite a visual, but how likely is that to actually happen?
Well, it's possible. I mean, scientists have found these massive craters on the ocean floor in places like the Barents Sea.
Right.
And they think those were caused by methane eruptions.
Wow.
But whether that's ever happened in the Bermuda Triangle and caused ships to sink, we don't really know.
So it's a lot of maybes and what ifs.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which brings us to another point that the source makes, which is that the Bermuda Triangle isn't even a real official place. It's more of a concept, right?
Exactly. It's not on any maps.
Yeah.
And the boundaries are kind of vague. Usually people say it's this triangle between Miami, Bermuda, and San Juan. But it's not like there's a line on the water.
Yeah.
And that makes it even harder to study scientifically.
Right.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
Yeah. Which maybe explains why there's so many myths surrounding it. I mean, it wouldn't be this famous if it weren't for all the books and movies that have made it into this big mystery.
Oh, for sure.
The source even mentions a guy named Charles Berlitz.
Oh, yeah.
Who was a big part of that.
Charles Berlitz, he was a great storyteller.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, he really popularized a lot of the Bermuda Triangle myths that we still talk about today.
Okay.
His book, The Bermuda Triangle, it was a huge bestseller. And it really got people fascinated with the area. It just shows you how a good story can capture people's imaginations.
Right.
Even if it's not entirely true.
Yeah, and when you talk about good stories, you can't forget about Flight 19, those Navy bombers that disappeared back in 1945.
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate Bermuda Triangle mystery, right?
It's a classic case of how when we don't have all the information, we tend to fill in the blanks with speculation.
Right.
The official Navy investigation concluded that the most likely scenario was that the lead pilot got disoriented and led the whole squadron off course, and they just ran out of fuel.
Okay.
But of course, that's not as exciting as aliens or some other paranormal explanation.
So I guess the question is the Bermuda Triangle just a big hoax, or is there something more to it?
I wouldn't call it a hoax, but it's definitely more of a cultural phenomenon than a real scientific enigma.
Yeah.
I mean, the ocean is a vast and powerful force, and while we've learned a lot about it, there's still so much we don't know.
And I think that's part of the appeal, right? It reminds us that there are still mysteries out there.
Absolutely.
Even if they're more about the limits of human knowledge than about supernatural forces.
Exactly. And maybe that's something we're thinking about. Why are we so drawn to the unexplained? What is it about these stories that captures our imaginations? I think maybe it's a reminder that even in our modern world with all our technology, there are still things out there that we just can't fully grasp. And that can be both a little scary and really exciting at the same time.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. I really appreciate you sharing your expertise with us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and maybe we'll see you on our next deep dive.
Until next time.
Take care.
Bye.